When you're in a funk or you're having a rough stretch or you're in a breakdown, happens to all of us, it's really helpful to remember the following three things. Cement these things into your conscious mind in whatever way you can. The first one is to remember that energy is always moving. So if you're in a funk, the energy will eventually move and you will no longer be in a funk. If you are struggling, the energy will eventually move and you will be able to reach for greater things and feel better. It's also important to recognize that a part of how energy moves is that oftentimes it needs to just sort of recalibrate. So we're constantly making choices, we're having these experiences, we're going through these natural ebbs and flow of life, and the energy then has to catch up. It has to adapt and kind of repurpose, reroute itself accordingly. So sometimes the funk that we're in is just we're bored. We're, not a lot is going on. We're in that space of the in-between or uncertainty or the not yet known or the not yet formed. And that's a fertile breeding ground for making shit up that probably isn't true and definitely doesn't feel good. So then we're the ones who are catapulting ourselves into a breakdown or a funk. So again, just remind yourself that energy is always moving. Sometimes it needs to recalibrate. And if things are quiet, I am in one of those recalibration periods. And the only thing to do during those times is to take care of yourself, to focus on things that feel good and nurturing and supportive for you. If it all feels too much and too overwhelming, then rest, give yourself space, give yourself permission to say no to things. Like, just prioritize yourself and your energy, because this isn't easy. And we're not taught to look at life through this lens. We're not taught that we are first and foremost energetic and vibrational beings, constantly reacting to energetic stimuli around us, primarily through the mechanism of emotion. Emotions are energy in motion. And so we're constantly sifting and sorting through this stuff, trying to make sense of it through frameworks that we were given that don't address any of it. So again, remember, energy is always moving. What goes up must come down. We are ebbing, we are flowing. The contraction always comes before the expansion. And sometimes we need to recalibrate. So just don't make up anything negative about it and take really good care of yourself in the process. Number two, the second thing to remember when you're in a funk is that you have to meet yourself where you're at. You cannot expect or hold the same expectations or standards for yourself as you would on a good day when things are going swimmingly and everything is working out beautifully and synchronistically and serendipitously for you. The game has changed in these moments. So we have to sort of recalibrate our mindset, so to speak, and ask ourselves, okay, this sucks. I'm struggling. I don't like this. What do I need in this space? And then give it to yourself. So if you need to be a crabby asshole for a bit, embrace that in a way that isn't directed towards anyone else in a harmful manner, of course. But if you want to just give yourself permission to not be positive and optimistic and enlightened or anything like that, then, do what you got to do to create a safe space to allow that for yourself. And the reason why I say this, and a lot of teachers of consciousness and energy might not. They might tell you to just focus on positive aspects or gratitudes or, raise your vibration. And I agree with them. If you can, that's a great place to go, because once you climb that vibrational ladder, you have access to the things that you didn't have access to down here. If you can pull that off, that's usually my go-to first place to look as well. But when you're in a funk, when you're in an ebb, when you are just stuck as hell, remember, you can only see an inch or two in front of your face. This is the space where we tend to forget all of our inner wisdom and all the cool stuff that we experience on a day-to-day basis. It's where the evidence that we have for these beliefs and these chosen perspectives just flies out the window. So the only choice is to meet yourself where you're at, because anything else just creates more resistance and keeps you in that funk longer than you may need to be. So we have to find the path of least resistance there. And sometimes it's going to look like canceling everything and committing to a day on the couch, binge watching Bridgerton or something. I had to think of the most recent relevant show out there. I think they just released new episodes. Put that on my to-do list. Or it can look like, taking exquisite extreme self-care of yourself, prioritizing yourself, say no to people, go for that walk out in nature, take that nap, adjust things in your schedule, whatever you have to do, just meet yourself where you're at. And again, recognize this isn't your normal everyday energetic state. You're in a funk. You got to adapt. We have to use a different level of discernment. And remember, tying back to number one, the energy will eventually move. So you don't have to panic or go into story mode saying like, oh, but I can't do this because then this will happen and that will happen. It's not going to last very long, especially if you follow these tips and remind yourself of these things. Okay, number 3, and I have to check my notes because this brain just goes off on tangents if I don't. Remember, this is important. Remember that the version of you, of who you are while you're in your funk, while you're feeling insecure as hell, scared, full of doubt, full of fear, you're self-sabotaging maybe, you're feeling all the stuff that we don't want to feel and we wish we didn't have to deal with. That is just one version of you. And you can love that version of you too. By the way, you can just kind of like, I always liken it to when my kids were toddlers and they would throw the most ridiculous tantrums over the dumbest shit. And I would look at them and on the one hand, I'd be like, oh my God, does it really matter what color your sippy cup is? And you asked for that color in the first place and then changed your mind about it. But then I remember from their point of view, the only thing they have access to is that they hate the color of their sippy cup and they're just melting the fuck down. So I can look at that and say, okay, yes, it's ridiculous. It does not make sense, but I've been there, kid. I know what that feels like, and I can show you love and compassion and scoop you up in my arms and hug you, squeeze you till you stop screaming. No, I don't mean it that way. That sounded sadistic, but hug them until they calm down. Oh God, I'm going off on a tangent here. So remember that that's only one version. That's just one version of my kids, and then they're the cute, happy, ridiculously entertaining, joyful, innocent version. And by the way, they're much older now. So I'm just speaking in terms of their toddlerdom because those are the most ridiculous stages, but you still see it at preteen and teenager. But with yourself, when you're feeling very stuck and internal like that, God, we believe those narratives. We believe those thoughts and those fears and the negatively skewed narrative about all of it. And it's just not true. That's just one version. And again, you can love that version, but then remember who you are when you're at your best, because that's you too. That version of you when things are going swimmingly and everything's working out for you and you're totally dialed in to the magic of the universe and your higher consciousness. You'll return there. You'll come back home to that version of yourself. Why? Refer back to number 1. Energy is always moving. You can't possibly stay in the same space, even if you wanted to. And then number 2, meet yourself where you're at and you're going to get there faster. You're going to bounce back faster. So those are 3 things that I myself remind myself when I'm in those funks and those ebbs. And by the way, it does not matter how enlightened you think you are. It doesn't matter if you teach this stuff on a daily basis. You are not exempt from how energy works. We are all meant to grow and expand and change. And as we come across different things in our everyday lives that help catalyze that, it will always trigger an emotional response. In other words, something good happens, you go after it, you move towards it, you're really happy about it, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a paralyzed state of fear and holy shit, what did I just do? Or what am I doing here? That's normal. It's unearthing and excavating all the energy that can't come with you. It's giving you the opportunity to stand in your new choice and consciously co-create from this new place. Don't be fooled by it and take care of yourself through these 3 ways. So if you found this to be valuable, go ahead and please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel in whatever platform you're watching this from. That helps its reach for everyone else and makes me feel good. And then if you want more, I'm holding a workshop called A Return to Alignment, where I'm going to cover all the things that will help you reconnect to who you really are in a very noisy and overwhelming world. You can contact me for more information on that.